Incorporations. This is a game that I have, I think I discovered it at Not Back to School camp, and it is really good for new groups and large groups. And so, for example, in just a few days, I'm going to lead this game with a group of roughly 90 people out in a field. And I've done this many times before. It requires, with a group that size, and especially if it's a spread out group, you need to have like a strong voice or have a microphone, something like that. I've also run it with groups of more like 20 or 30 or 40 people in an enclosed space where it's a bit easier to manage. But this game does get noisy, and you need a way to like bring the focus back to you. So all that being said, incorporation is just a fancy word for make groups based upon certain characteristics. But I like using the word incorporate as a verb. And so I'll say, as the introduction to this game, all right, I'm going to ask you to identify certain things about yourself, and then to find other people who share the same identity, and then to physically go find each other, move, and to form a body to incorporate with each other. And if you have a little bit of extra time there, then you can, like, if you don't know someone's name, you can, introduce each other, or you can talk a little bit. But pretty soon we're going to form another incorporation. And so let me just give you the actual prompts that I'm going to be using with this group of about 90 people at Not Back to School camp, which is a lot of teenagers, ages 14 to 19, and then adult staff. So here are the groups. I'll say first, okay, incorporate based upon the number of camp sessions that you've attended. And so, for example, there's 2 sessions of camp that run each year, one on the West Coast, one on the East Coast. And so this is something that each person can quickly calculate in their head. I've been to camp 3 times. And I'll be sure to clarify, okay, this session that we're just starting right now counts as 1 session. So if this is your first time here, you have 1 session. And so this is a really easy way to start this, because people can just raise their fingers. That I don't tell them how to find each other. And so some people yell out 4, and some people will hold their fingers up 2, and somebody will be like 7. And so they need to like wander around and like interact with each other and be like, hey, you're 2, you're 3, where are my 4s, where are my 4s? And then maybe there's someone who's been to camp like 12 times, or one of the old-time staff members will have been there 32 times. And so it's kind of funny for these people to be like, trying to like signal 32, and knowing that almost certainly no one else is going to be in their group. So they're going to be in a group of 1. And I'd say that the goal with this game is to have very few groups of 1. And if there are groups of 1, for it to be kind of a unique or interesting thing. It's like, oh, wow, this person's been here 32 times. Okay. And so they'll try to self-organize, and usually within like 30 to 60 seconds, you'll have most people in a group. And then I will be kind of popping around. And if I see someone who looks confused, or if I see like 2 groups, like there's a group of 4 over here and a group of 4 over here, and I'm like, you're the same, go join each other. And if there's someone who really looks confused, I might be like, what's your number? What are you looking for? And I might guide them in the right direction. But it's barely managed chaos. And so most people will find a group, and then I'll try to get everyone quiet. And so this is where it helps to have something to get everyone quiet. There's different ways to do this. I won't go into that. But once they're quiet, I will quickly point to each group, and I'll be like, okay, what's your number? So I just quickly hear from each group. And so I'll be like, 3 years, first year. You see the person standing alone, and he says 32 years or 32 sessions. And then you just quickly identify, people get to see each other. And then you say, okay, next one. And it's like, boom, 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 one incorporation after another. And so the next one I would use at camp is, okay, incorporate based upon your home state or Canadian province, or if you're not from North America, then you're a foreign country. And so that's really easy. People are like, California, Wisconsin, Arizona. And someone's like, Manitoba. And every now and then, this leads to these delightful discoveries where it's like, oh my gosh, there is someone else from Manitoba here. Cool. And that's why this is a connection game, because for a group of people that don't really know each other yet, and have these things in common, it's like, okay, you just get to like, boom, you get to find other people who share these like very basic demographic identifiers with each other. Okay, so then I'm like, I interview everyone. Looks like there's only one person from Maine. Oh, wow, there's 2 people from Manitoba. Next category, age. Basic age segregation. I remember being a teenager and just like really being curious how old everyone else is, because that feels, for some reason, very important at that age. Okay, so age. And maybe you realize, oh, there's a group of 19-year-olds here. Oh, maybe you get to like suss out like, oh, this is what the age distribution is at this camp or within this group. Huh, interesting. Boom, next one. Number of siblings. 0, 1, 2, you see some people have 5 siblings. For this group, and I really like to really personalize these prompts for the groups whenever possible, because this is a camp for unschoolers and homeschoolers, but many of whom have also gone to school for a while, or they go to alternative schools. I think I'm going to use the prompt, okay, incorporate based upon the number of years you've attended school. Any kind of school, regular school, alternative school. This is where you get into these little negotiating things. It's like, well, I went for half a year. I'm like, just round up. Just choose the total number of years, more or less, that you went to school. Don't think too hard. Just a rough answer is great. And so then, oh, you can see there's this big group over here that never went to school. And then there's a group over here that has actually gone to school for like 8 years. They've spent a lot of time in school. Great. Another like brief, like, what is this group composed of moment? I have 2 more ones that I'm going to use at Not Back to School Camp. One is, when do you normally like to go to sleep? And so in this case, I would say, round it to the nearest hour on the hour. For example, 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Great. So we get to see who the early birds are, who the night owls are. And they get to be like, oh, you also like to stay up till 4 a.m. every night? Oh. Okay. And then the last one that I may or may not use for this group is incorporate based upon your preferred pronoun, your primary preferred pronoun, because there's lots of kids in this camp who use non-standard pronouns. It's also something that changes over time, and sometimes some people feel very sensitive about what this is. And I know this group well enough to know that there's a lot of interest in this subject. So I think it would go over well and actually be interesting to them. But I need to ask a few other people at the camp before I do this, because it could also be crossing an invisible line that maybe I don't want to cross in this game. Cool. So those are examples of what I would do with this group, very large group, teenagers and adults at this camp for unschoolers. And if you've been thinking like, how do these prompts work? It should be a limited number of obvious options. So for example, some prompts that I would probably not use. What's your favorite pet? Maybe there's a lot of dog and cat people out there, but there's just like this whole world of animals. It might become like a bit too dispersed. There might be too many groups of one. Favorite color is not one that I would use. First, because I think it's a terribly boring question. And second, because there are so many colors out there, and it doesn't tell you that much about the other people. It's like, you also like blue. Okay. I have thought about using your current mode of education. So for example, homeschool, unschool, alternative school, community college, regular school. But again, there's too many like nuances in that question. Someone's like, well, I go to this hybrid charter school, but I'm also like doing this other thing for 3 days. It's like, oh. Okay, there's not a clear limited number of options that people can quickly sort themselves into. Finally, one that I've used for many groups that have come from far away is, what is the mode of transportation that you use to get here? Plane, train, automobile, bus, you walked here, you biked here. And I would not use this with Not Back to School Camp because it's a bit complicated. All the teens will somehow get themselves to Eugene, and then most of them will get onto buses that bring them to the camp. Others will get dropped off by their parents. But just the fact that like maybe you took a plane to Eugene and then you're getting on a bus, it's just like, it's going to confuse people. They're going to be like, well, I did these two. So you need to think like simple, 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 simple. as minimal thinking as possible while still being like a kind of interesting identifier and something that this group is probably already wondering about other members of the group. And that is what makes a really good round of incorporations. For a really big group where it takes time for people to self-assemble and to quiet them down and then to quickly poll all of the groups, I think for the prompts that I just listed, so that's at least 6 prompts, maybe 7, this is going to take, a solid 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. But it's high energy, it gets people meeting other people who they have not yet met. Maybe being like, oh, you're someone else who's done a bunch of school, and then you came to this camp for kids who don't go to school. And so it creates these little connection points that they can potentially revisit later on. And that's why this game has proven really valuable for me. I've got a little bit more I want to say about it, but I want to pause here and take any questions or comments about running incorporations. Yeah, Kelly.
I mean, I guess you said you weren't going to go into it, but I am curious how you get a big group of 90 people to be quiet.
Okay, then I'll go into it. I would say there is the like quiet coyote or the hushing, the shh, and you try to get other people. It all just feels like the noise police to me. And I've never enjoyed being in the receiver role of that. And so sometimes I take it upon myself to just like dash between the groups and be like, and I just like make eye contact with at least one person in that group. And I'm like, and that might take me 20 seconds to go around. And then I'll just start speaking. And I hope that enough of the groups will hear that I'm speaking in a loud enough voice that they will pay attention and say like, okay, we're moving on to the next thing. I'd say the first round or two of this is the hardest because everyone's kind of jittery with energy. But once they see that like, okay, this will only proceed if we all be quiet, then it works. You could also use an air horn, just for pure disruptive effects. But I also don't like to disrupt people because I'm sensitive to loud, abrupt noises.
I like a wind chime. Sorry, can you
Great question, though.
I like using a wind chime because it's like calm, but it still cuts through a crowd talking.
Mm-hmm. If there's some sort of gong, there's some sort of like loud bell you can use. That's fantastic. That's a tactic. All right, let me say a little bit more about one other time that I played Incorporations. That's a different scenario from Not Back to School Camp. I have a group of dancer friends out in Europe who gathered for someone's birthday. And it was a relatively small group. It was like 15 people. But my friend whose birthday it was said, can you run some games? Because there's people who have never met each other. There's people who know each other really well in this group. And there are people who don't know anyone else. And I want everyone to feel welcome here. And so this is all adults. These are people coming from different countries. The one thing that they share is they like my friend Tina because that's her birthday, and they like dance. So how did I work with this? Kind of other end of the spectrum. Here are the prompts that I used. First one was, okay, incorporate based upon the number of languages that you speak fluently. In Europe, there's a lot. There's like people who are speaking 4 languages fluently. And, I put myself in like the English and Spanish category. So that was an easy one. Just, again, limited number of choices. They have to decide what fluent means, but they figured it out. Next one was number of years that you've known Tina. Okay, birthday girl, rounded off to the closest whole year. You quickly see like some people have only met her recently. Others have known her for half her life. I asked incorporate based upon the last form of public transport that you took to get here. So let me say that one more time. The last form of public transport that you took to get here, because pretty much everyone takes public transport. We were outside of London. And so a lot of people took buses. Some people took like streetcars. Other people took an Uber. And so that was an easy one. Now I decided to start taking some risks. Tina has a love of chocolate. She and I share this. And if I remember correctly, she and I both were very open to trashy milk chocolate. And there are members of this group who have very strong feelings on this subject. And so I said, incorporate based upon your feelings about Cadbury chocolate, which is the standard trashy milk chocolate. I think it's actually great in the UK. And so this is not something that lends itself to like easily identifiable categories. And this is why I would only do this with a small group and a group of adults who I think can handle this level of complexity. And so people organized into the I love it so much. This is gross, disgusting, only 80% dark chocolate or above for me. Other people who are like, well, when I'm having a bad day, I'll eat it, and otherwise I won't. And so they kind of, because there's such a small group, they're able to like quickly ask each other and have these little conversations. I would never ask a question like that with a really big group. Second to last prompt was incorporate based upon your favorite thing about Tina. Flattery goes a long way. And so again, this is a chance for them to talk with each other and share their knowledge about this person and be like, well, her dancing skills, her generosity, her lust for life. And then of course, Tina's feeling really great about this when I ask everyone to share. She's melting a little bit in a puddle. And then the very last one, excuse me if this offends you. This is a group of kind of free love dancers, and the final prompt was the number of occasions you've kissed Tina. And so there were some people who have been in long-term partnerships and who said, essentially said like 1,000 times, and then someone else who maybe like held their hand up one time, and many who held their hand up and said 0. But I thought that really made everyone laugh a little bit because it reveals this kind of secret, and again, this thing where you're like kind of wondering this about other people. I think those are the best incorporation prompts.